very shortly after the whole NEA political funding of artists collapsed, and the whole congressional debate on what's permissible as a representation of the body and of sexuality, and artists were really called to task as it's like the how do you say, it's like the Cassandra was named, Cassandra gets killed, so the artist is like the Cassandra, and the messenger got killed, or they tried to kill us. And I realized that first I realized I had no idea that the gap was so large between us, the messengers, and them, the dominant culture, and two, we don't understand each other, and three, I felt betrayed. I thought you wanted me to speak these things. I thought you wanted me to, reveal what I saw. I thought you wanted me to create representations around these questions, because I was being supported for doing that by arts organizations, NEA grants, etc. And then all of a sudden, it's gone, and money stopped coming for my work as well. And I stepped off the bus one day. I was living in Minneapolis, and I stepped off the bus in 1992 because there was a name. There was a name of on a storefront that really interested me. It said Project Off Streets. Never heard that. Never saw those words go together before. So I got off the bus and I walked in, and it was filled with teenagers jumping off the walls, all again, racial, ethnic teens. And this was a crisis center for teenagers who were homeless. And I said, oh my God, what? All these kids are homeless? And on their own, not families that are homeless, but these are kids who had left abusive, neglectful, drug addicted, whatever families. These were the creative kids who could get away. There are millions of others that never leave and get screwed, but they end up in this crisis. So I said, well, I wonder, since I'm not going to get any more money for making my art, and since I'm been sort of accused of being bad, wrong somehow by indirectly, because I identified with how Maplethorpe was being accused of wrongdoings. I said, well, maybe I'll work here. Maybe I'll just start a art program here. And it's, like that's not what CalArts would have wanted me to do. That's not what I was primed to do. But I said, well, gee, why not? So anyway, long story short, I started a small program there. There's now 18 years old. It's called Culture Club Collaborative. Culture Club from Culture Club, the singers, but with 2 Ks. Culture Club Collaborative. I developed it after hanging out for about 6 months at this crisis center. I was just very compelled by hanging out with these kids. The stories I heard of life were like nothing I'd ever heard of before. Nothing. It came close to some of the stories my father would tell me about being a survivor in the war. And those were beyond horrific because he lost his entire family. And these kids, they were the first people I'd ever met, whose they were living in the same countries I was, in the same cities I was, who had stories that came close to that relative horror in their lives, and I couldn't believe it. So my project started with borrowing their van. I said, can I use your van? I'll just fill it with kids and take them to see art. And this is social service. And they go, what do you mean art? They're not going to be interested in art. They need to eat. I go, yeah, but you're feeding them. So they're already getting food. So maybe they need to be inspired. So anyway, that was the beginning, the seed of a program, and the byline for it was Culture Club Collaborative, artists working with homeless teens, bridging survival and inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 9 years. And I got tickets for from every arts, high, low, medium, slow, every arts organization, music, film, dance, theater, museums, free tickets for these kids. And every week I took them to see art on Thursdays, and then we would go and have soda and talk. And then every Tuesdays I'd invite an artist in to talk with them and to bring documentation or materials for them to do their own work. And then it developed into an artist in residency program where I brought artists in for like 8 to 12 weeks to develop a project in relation to the kids. And then we found venues where the kids would perform their work to the public. And it's like just, it's just like this amazing thing that grew, and it's now this year it's going to be 18 years old. And that was major for me. And so that was the 90s. And at the same time, I was really questioning art as kind of the traditional art as an artist going through the traditional venues, and art had become extremely swept up by the same commercialization as everything else in American culture. It was just as much a part of late capitalism as anything else, and it was bought and sold like derivatives. And I had such a hard time with that because I just came from this I was such a little ethical baby, and I grew up into this big ethical baby. And it was hard. I couldn't quite get to the place of the lawyer with a good intention, and then 10 years later you realize, I could be making money and expand this case by 20 or 40 or 80 hours because there's money to be made there. I just can never get to that head.